All right. Um, Again, welcome everyone. My name is Sherry Samarusti. I'm the Associate Executive Director of Angel Flight West, and I run the Mission Ops team. Today, do a quick introduction or a photo introduction of the Mission Operations team. I'll give you what's a mission moment. It's a little bit about the heart of the organization. We'll have our upcoming town hall schedule, talk to you about volunteer recognition, and then today's program, which is a new volunteer session run by Tony Schwarz. This is the operation team. So while you are getting oriented or after you've been oriented, these are the folks that you'll be working with. There's myself, mission coordinators, Natalie Peters, Maddie Eichten, and Julia Brecker. Alejandro Ramirez is our operations manager. And since I don't believe this is a big secret, he is not with us tonight because he is off heading to his wedding on Saturday. So congrats to Alejandro. And then our volunteer coordinators, Rochelle Matterall and David Nathan. I'm going to tell you a little story here. As many of you may know, we have a relationship with several different airlines, and we call them our partner airlines. And in the event we can't help, a pilot's not available, or weather precludes a pilot from flying, we have some partners. One of those partners is JSX. Many of you may know them. They're one of these little sort of regional boutique airlines. Who you see here in the picture is Larry. So we received a call from a hospice facility, and Larry had suffered a stroke. He had some serious impairments. And because his wife was also ill, he was moved into a skilled nursing facility. He became very depressed, and sadly, shortly after he was moved into that facility, his wife passed away from her illness. Larry had lost his will to live, and he didn't really have any family except for a sister who he was estranged from. But the sister made her way from Southern California to Denver to see Larry, and they started the process of trying to move him from Denver to Southern California. Unfortunately, the hospice facility was very concerned about Larry's physical and mental ability to take a commercial flight. They called Angel Flight. We were very concerned about putting him in what we call a relay flight, which would be 3 small planes going from Denver across to Southern California, his ability to get in and off the planes and all of that. So part of our relationship with JSX, there is a flight that goes from Denver into Burbank. And so social worker found out about Angel Flight, came to us, and we decided to make sort of an exception to the rule and put Larry on JSX. That eliminates TSA, long treks through an airport. So here you see a picture of Larry outside the JSX plane. He doesn't look particularly happy in that photo. But in the next photo, you see there he is with his sister and the social worker who moved him. He is smiling. Sadly, Larry only lived a few more months after he was relocated to Southern California. However, he was there with family, and in the social worker's words, her hope was that he was full of love when he passed. So our thanks to JSX for their continued support and generosity. Normally, David and Rochelle would do this little piece, but since they're not here this evening, I'm going to do it. So these are our top pilots year to date. So we have Dennis Phelan in Arizona. Year to date, he has flown 90 missions. The guy is kind of a flying machine, and you see him there in the picture. He just last week completed his 1,000th mission. Then Osamu Manabe in Hawaii at 52 missions, John Jewett in Washington with 48, Bill Diedrich in Northern California with 37, Michael Evans in Nevada with 36, Phil Council in Arizona with 29, Chris Bennett in NorCal with 26, Michael Valentine in Utah with 24, Mark Hawkinson in Montana with 23, and Tom Holliday in SoCal with 23. And then we have Earth Angels who help us with ground transportation. Dennis is also kind of a driving fool. So he flies out of the Goodyear Airport in Arizona. And when people are going to the facilities around the Phoenix area, he also drives them. So our top driver right now is Dennis with 63 drives, Marlene Hutchison in Washington with 47, Flavio in Southern California with 23, Sandra Cano in Southern California with 17, Dottie-Ann McReynolds in Northern California was 16, Lynn Sturgis in SoCal was 16, Lois Orphis in SoCal with 13, Karen Arden in Utah with 12, Costa Constantine in Colorado with 11, and Tom Rodabaugh in SoCal with 8. So kudos to all those folks for their hard work. And just a quick reminder on that note that everybody flying one mission a year, 2 missions a year, or driving 1 drive or 2 drive is a great contributor to this organization. So you don't have to be at the top of these lists to make a difference. I'd now like to introduce Tony Schwarz, one of our frequent flying command pilots. He flies out of the Southern California wing, and I'll turn it over to you, Tony. You're on mute, Tony.
You hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Sherry, and a personal thank you to Sherry. She is the rock of the world for this system. She is incredibly knowledgeable and supportive. And while you don't always talk to her, her and her staff are really makes this whole system work so beautifully. So thank you for that. Next slide. So all of you who are new volunteers, welcome. Don't be intimidated. This works a lot easier than you may think. So think about why you're doing this. These are the 5 things that came to my mind, and I'm sure you will probably agree with those. It's enjoyment. It's a way to do something really valuable and very tangible. I like to donate to things, but when you can donate your own personal time and you can see the benefits immediately of who's getting the value, if you will, I love that. You know, giving $1 to a charity is great, but you never know what happens to that $1. Here you have exactly know what's happening. Next. Once you have signed up, you can go to the AFW website. It's been modified over the years. It's quite robust, pretty reliable. Never had real trouble with it. And there you can find information of all sorts, your own too, where you can update your personal preferences and things of that sort. You can find and select flights, and you can post your post-mission reports. Next. So what are the key considerations for an Angel flight? First of all, the mission specifics, the unique and critical aspects of an Angel flight, the procedures. I'm not going to spend much time tonight about talking about flight safety. I hope that you come here with good qualifications, and flying is always, to me, the same. You have to do what it takes to have a safe flight. So I'm not going to go and repeat that all here. Next. So all of us have had a first flight. I remember mine very keenly. I got up early in the morning and met someone at Santa Monica Airport in a twin-engine Cessna, and we flew to Las Vegas to pick up a passenger. Had really nasty headwinds coming back, but that's how we learn. I think the easiest to do your first mission with someone who's done it before. I'll talk to you a little bit more about mission assistants. They do not have to be pilots, but nonetheless, those are the people will know the ropes. Again, when you have something in mind, you can always talk to AFW staff. They're always a phone call away, and find out what you need for your trip. These missions are really communication driven. I can't emphasize that enough. It's reassuring to all parties to know what's happening and when and how. So this includes, of course, yourself, the pilot, the mission assistant, the passenger or passengers, the Angel Flight team, your Earth Angels who are critical to being there to pick up and deliver time into the right place. And as I'll talk to you a little bit more later about the fixed base operator, where you typically will pick up and deliver passengers. Not always the case, but most airports, that's who you'll be dealing with. So communication, please be rich and generous in talking to people as much as necessary. Next. The other thing is when you deal with passengers in this role, and Sherry just gave a wonderful personal example of one of our passengers, it's a difficult time typically. Not all of them are sick, although most of them have some sort of disease issue they're dealing with, but there's other personal issues. We've had situations of spouse abuse, and we want to vacate them from a city. Or other special needs. We've transported dogs, which you'll probably hear about later, which is another wonderful thing. I haven't had that opportunity yet, but sometimes it's children being reunited with their family. Sometimes it's taking people to special camps for burn camp and things of that sort. But nonetheless, they're all have their stories, and whatever it may be, you have to try to be sensitive to what their story is. And so the uncertainty of flying in a small aircraft, you probably all realize is typical. Some of you have bigger aircraft. I'm flying a 182. They may have financial challenges that you're not aware of. They may have an immediate health condition, so they have weakness or they're pain or they have anxiety about, they're going to get chemo or they're going to get bad news from their doctors. So just be aware of that. This isn't just anybody. And of course, in all cases, we want to assure their privacy and confidentiality as much as possible. They may want to talk about their situation. That's, of course, up to them. But I would never, go and, quiz them about it. If it's not relevant to the safety of the flight, keep it as limited as possible. Next. This is a little quote that I think speaks beautifully for itself. This is a pilot, Richard, who kind of put it in a good summary here. By doing this work, we become part of someone's treatment. It's not just a ride, but part of this person getting well or part of their struggle. And that is deeply personal, and I'm grateful to be able to do that for another. Thanks. Next. So as a command pilot, you're pretty much coordinating the whole event. And your first priority is that of the flight, and your second priority is that of the passenger. I like to think of a passenger kind of as a family member, even though it's brief. Always be reassuring when you first meet them. Be friendly. Try to be as upbeat as you can. I mean, don't overdo it, but you understand what I'm saying. Offer them help with their bags and with their equipment and their seat belts and their headsets. I mean, really reach out. Don't just sit there and say, okay, here's my airplane, get on board. If you're at an FBO and if you haven't worked with FBOs before, that's something to get used to. Most of them have vehicles that will help you transport the patient to and from the aircraft. Some of these FBOs are very busy, have a lot of executive jets floating around, and they'll park you far away if you're not a big airplane. And so when you first arrive, let them know that you have a patient and that you would like some help with transportation, or have them relocate the aircraft closer to the gate, to the door. But be sure you are aware of that need. As I said earlier, working with your ground transport, namely an Earth Angel. And sometimes you can do this yourself. If they're near the airport that you're leaving from, you can pick them up, bring them to the airport yourself. Also, at your destination FBO, most of these places have a crew car, as they call it. And if you let them know you'd like to use it, 9 times out of 10, if it's not already in use, they'll make it available to you for no cost. And you can even drive your patient to their final destination and then come back to the airport and go on your way. You don't have to do that, but I just want you to know that's available. Next. So once you've registered with AFW, You can download their app and start to kind of explore the websites. I don't want to spend a lot of time tonight going through the website. They are pretty intuitive, frankly. They're not that hard to use. And for the first or second time, you can be online or on the phone with one of the AFW people, and they'll guide you through it. It's, like I say, it's pretty straightforward. You will also, if you offer them your phone number, and most of us agree to this, I think all of us do, you'll get weekly updates of what's currently available for flights. They are groomed to your geographic area. But by the way, once in a while, I fly to, say, Oregon, and I'll let them know that I'm going to be in Oregon for a couple of weeks. And if they have flights out of Oregon, they can shift their system to be looking for you to be available in Oregon instead of in Southern California, as the case may be. You will also get pleadings sometimes in the email saying, hey, we had so-and-so's airplane is not available. We need someone, in the next day or hour or whatever it may be. And you're welcome to respond to those. However, be aware that you don't have to respond to each and every email that or text message that comes to you. If you have something to offer, of course, you want to be in touch with them, but just don't need to write back and say, no, thank you, I don't have time, because that just clutters their inbox as well. Also be thoughtful about spam. I think by now we all realize that stuff doesn't get to where it's supposed to go, and sometimes it gets where you don't want it to go. So in this case, of course, you want to receive these messages and emails. When you pick a mission, again, there's no obligation. As Sherry said, if you do once or twice a year, that's great. If you do 50 times a year, that's wonderful too. But it's a very loose, it's a volunteering system that allows you a lot of flexibility, which is another benefit of this system. So select one that's fits your time, your skill level. If you're not an IFR pilot, consider the weather, of course, and geography. We have here in Southern California, we have a couple of high altitude airports, Big Bear being the most well known. If you don't feel comfortable flying in high altitude areas, or you're too heavy up there, don't sign up for those. Sign up can be done from the weekly email. You can click right on it and sign up, or you can call in, or you can go to the website, lots of ways. Also from the app. And the other thing to remember is if you are in Airport A, but Airport B is where they want to fly out of and it's nearby or otherwise convenient, you can contact AFW, and they will contact the patient and say, hey, would you mind finding your way to this other airport? So this is part of the communication that I talked about earlier. Go ahead. So once you have been assigned you've applied and you've been assigned to a mission, you're going to get a piece of paper, which we're going to go over here in just a second, that has all of this information below. Not necessarily PAX concerns, but everything you need to know about the flight. So let's take a look at this document, because it's kind of the key document that gives you your guidance as what you do. Number one, I highly recommend, and actually would insist, that you print this document out and carry it with you at all times. The FBO may ask for it and say, oh, are you a legitimate Angel flight? In places like Santa Monica, they'll waive your landing fees if necessary. They'll waive your FBO charges. Most FBOs will waive all charges, and some of them will give you a discount on fuel. You have to ask for it sometimes, or they'll give you service fuel, and you pay the self-service price, or things of this sort. So be sure and be aware of that. So here you see the basic information. And first and foremost, you see the name of the patient and a phone number and an email. Try and call them as soon as you get this stuff in hand. As I said, sometimes they won't answer the phone because they're afraid of spam. So leave a message. You can also email them or text them, but get that connection together. Also, you want to review the weights and any special needs they have, equipment. I don't get wheelchairs in my plane, but I can get most walkers if they fold. So those are kind of things you want to kind of anticipate. This is the time and place to learn about that. Let's go down. They do, as you notice, they do talk about the reason for travel. I consider this very confidential, and the only reason they share that with you is so you understand what potential challenges you may or may not have dealing with this particular patient. So just be aware of that. But I would not advertise that and tell all your friends, oh, I took someone that had this, that, and the other problem. Next. And here you have the locations going to and from, and who is going to be helping out. This one happens to be, I guess, mine, didn't realize it. So we're going to be leaving from Santa Monica. The FBO there is Atlantic Aviation. We're going to go to Santa Barbara. There are 2 FBOs in Santa Barbara. We go to Signature. They happen to be a little more friendly to us. And they don't always give the phone number here, but if you go to ForeFlight or any of your other options, you can call them and say, hey, I'm coming up on this date. I'll get there approximately this time. I have this many passengers. I'm going to need fuel or not. Give them your tail number and so on. And then they will put it in their calendar. Some are more responsive when you arrive. They'll come out and meet you. Sometimes they're busy. They may not. So you're just going to have to taxi in slowly and make sure you find an appropriate place to park. And then there's further information below here about whether lodging is needed and emergency contact. So that's the kind of information you'll have at hand. Next. So we talked about a mission assistant. I just want to go over what that entails. Mission assistants do not necessarily have to have any qualifications. I've taken friends with me who just want to be on the ride, and I ask them to help me with certain aspects, and they do that. Of course, they add weight to your trip, so you got to keep that in mind. So it can be a friend, it can be a family member, it can be a registered AFW volunteer. Now, when I say registered, any mission assistant must be registered with Angel Flight. And that's not a big deal. It's a phone call typically, but they want to know who's on the plane other than your passenger assigned. And this is primarily for insurance and for coordination. So, by the way, some mission assistants will contribute toward costs. And if you go to Angel Flight, they ask mission assistants that they have on file, and they will say whether or not they will help toward costs or not. That's up to you, of course. And the first contact with your mission assistant is kind of the same as it would be with your passenger: time, date, place, the basic information, any special needs. I would point out that when you do any person under 18 that's not flying with their own parent or guardian, the mission assistant needs to be 18 years old, and you need to have a mission assistant. You cannot fly by yourself with a person under 18 years old. Next. And I like, first of course, to make that initial contact, sort out any details, and then the day before, ideally contact them again and say, hey, we're still on, the weather's good, everything's fine, my airplane's in shape, are you still going to the doctor, is everything still the same? Confirm what's going on. This is back to my mantra about communication. Next. A little bit more about the FBOs. You can never call them too early. FBOs do have strange surprises. Some of them have, for example, a golf event or a convention or a car show or God knows what, and they do not have room for you. They might make room for you if you tell them your reason for being there, and some of them actually, the airport control tower will require that you have made prior arrangements to land at that airport because there is an event. So it never hurts to call them too early and get that sorted out. The information you give them is kind of obvious. I won't go over that. I talked about the free car. You can also use that car, if it's available, to go take a meal break or take an hour and go, do whatever you want to do and then come back to the airport. Those are typically free. You give them your driver's license or whatever, and they give you the car keys and away you go. I told you about waiving fees. I think it's important also to make sure you understand where the FBO is on the airport. If they can give you prior instructions about where to taxi to, that's also very helpful, because you don't want to be out there going to the wrong place or having to wait a long time to get tied down. I told you about having an admission itinerary available. Most of them ask for it, not all of them. And one other thing, the guys that come out and help you in various levels of support, some of them really, put it out there for you. And I like to give them a tip. So please consider that. They work hard out there. They get bossed around by a lot of rich people, and they're probably very appreciative when you offer them some money. Next. So the command pilot will receive an email the day before the flight. It's automatic. It confirms the plans. It provides the latest weather and other information. It's actually quite rich with information. Also, this issue about legal waivers. We used to have to get a live signature from everybody before the flight. Sherry and her team have been very creative and have now taken care of all of that before the flight. And so you do not have to deal with any paperwork, so to speak, during the flight. Of course, the weather that they offer you is what they offer. You still need to do your own due diligence, whatever is comfortable for you getting ready for the flights. So I like to take a look at baggage. I've had a couple of flights where people showed up like they were going on a Southwest flight and they had these big bags. Angel Flight tries to brief their passengers on all this beforehand. But I did actually have a couple of flights where I had to leave the baggage at the departure airport, and they had to deal with it in some other way. So we try to avoid that. It's rare, I admit it, but I do like to check the weight. And I went out and bought a little scale. It's a handheld thing. You can hang it off your wing or just hold it, pick it up, and it'll weigh the luggage for you. It's about 5 or 10 or 15 bucks, and it's well worth having along to confirm that you don't go overweight. Again, I like to help the passenger board. For a high wing plane, I have a little 3-step aluminum ladder that I bought, keep in the back. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It weighs 5 pounds, and it's a lifesaver sometimes getting in and out of the airplane. If you need to help the passenger and you need to maybe push them in or move their feet or whatever it may be, just ask them before you touch them. Some people are very uncomfortable with that, but in these situations, that may be necessary. Some people are now boarding what I call a comfort pack. It includes a few little odds and ends for them. It's not required, but if you choose to do that, I think it's very reassuring to the passenger. Next. I have prepared, and I suggest you do a little emergency procedures paper or card or whatever it is, how to open the doors, what to do on an emergency situation. It's just something to, again, reassure the passenger. I don't want to make it too scary, so I don't say too much, but I say enough. Next. I always provide headsets to everyone. You don't have to do the noise canceling, but at least do something. If you don't, at least offer them earplugs. All of our small planes are fairly noisy and they don't need that additional stuff. And explain to them, of course, when the headsets will be live. Typically, they don't work until you fire up, so they need to understand that. Okay, next. We don't do too many overwater flights, but our folks in Hawaii do, and it could come up. Be sure and go through the life vest location and procedures. Next. And then, as I said earlier, try to limit the discussion of the person's health. It's just something that some people are okay to talk about. Some people want to talk about it. That even can go to the wrong way. It becomes kind of onerous, and you're kind of put in an awkward situation. But be prepared for that. It can happen. Some people don't want to talk about it at all. Next. So I like to walk them through the flight, talk to them about, of course, a sterile cockpit and those sorts of things, but also give them a little, you're going to see Lake Tahoe, or you're going to fly over the Grand Canyon, or whatever it may be. That sort of gives them a little more relief. It gives them something to do while they're flying. I just already mentioned the thing about headphones and sterile cockpit. Turbulence, you might warn them that it's possible. You're going to do whatever you can to avoid it, but it's not something that is guaranteed. And reassure them that this plane is very capable of dealing with that, and so are you. And make that known. And then always ask for questions at the end. Be receptive, be patient. They may ask the same thing 3 times, but that's okay. Next. You got another one? So I do want to talk about aviation only in the context of these missions. Never allow circumstances to cause you to make an unsafe aviation decision. Never. You have no idea how receptive Angel Flight people are to accommodating. Hey, the weather went bad. It's too windy. Whatever it may be. As Sherry said early, they have some really neat connections. Jet Suite is one of them. They have some fairly good deals with people like Southwest and Alaska Airlines, among others, and they can pull some pretty good rabbits out of the hat. So be sure and ask them and talk about it. Don't just assume, oh, what are we going to do? I better go. Next. The get there itis. We've all been taught that. As I just said, mission cancellations are always okay. They are available 24/7. It's a little harder to get to them during the night, but they do have a on-call person. Hopefully we don't have too much night operations, but whenever it may be Sunday, they will get back to you. And I just said they have pretty good access to a lot of other resources, some of which I probably don't even know, but you will know when you need it. I already referred to weather, TFRs, airport closures. This all can happen at the last minute. As regards to patient health during the flight, as I said, Sherry and the team try to screen these patients so that they're not that delicate that the flight would create an emergency. But no one can predict everything perfectly. If you have an illness during the flight, number one, aviate. Number two, notify ATC. I would encourage you to declare an emergency. There's a lot of discussion about declaring emergencies. It's not a bad thing. You should do it more freely than you might otherwise think. It allows the ATC to do things that they would not otherwise be allowed to do, clear you into Bravo, clear you into another airspace, get you on an airport faster. It's worth doing it. And of course, like I said, aviate, navigate, communicate. It's the same old thing, and it shouldn't change when you have an Angel Flight patient aboard. I personally do almost all my flights VFR. I always have VFR flight following. It keeps you in touch with someone at all times. It's not that big of a deal. When you identify yourself in an Angel Flight, needless to say, they're more likely to be accommodating and helpful. If you're on an IFR plan, of course, that does the same thing, but it's a worthwhile thing to do. Go ahead. I've had really good experiences with ATC from time to time. They've cleared me into Bravo coming into Santa Monica because I wanted to stay high and out of some turbulence along the Santa Monica Mountains. They've done that. They do those sort of things. They would never do that on a regular situation. So don't hesitate to work with them. Go ahead. The AFW would like a post-mission report every time. If you don't send it in voluntarily, they will remind you, as they should. You can do it from your app. You can do it at home from on your computer, whatever works. It's not a big deal, but please make sure you do that. And finally, not maybe finally, but I like to keep it as upbeat as I can. Be friendly, be positive. As I said, these people have enough trouble in their lives that you're not the one that wants to make it any more difficult for them. Go ahead. Some of these people, this is the first or one of few flights. I remember taking a couple down from Monterey. We flew all the way down along Highway 1. They were absolutely thrilled, and they just, and she was in bad shape, but this completely took their attention, and we had a wonderful time, and they were telling me all about the different things along that area because they had spent most of their life along that area. Those are the kind of things that are memorable and will make it so much nicer. And part of the experience of Angel Flight is giving people these private flights that they may never have had and may never have again. Go ahead. I repeat myself, but it's a counterpoint to their difficulties. And you're welcome to stay in touch with passengers if they choose to do that. I wouldn't push it, but if they feel like that's something they like to do, and they may say, hey, would you fly me, in 2 weeks? That's when you have to refer them back to the Angel Flight. They have to do that coordination. You can encourage them to say, oh yeah, ask for me by name. That's great. But Angel Flight must coordinate these for liability and safety and all the things that they're responsible for. Go ahead. I just said that. That pretty much wraps up what I wanted to share with you tonight. I hope this brings you some encouragement to start flying for us and with us. If you have any questions, we're open right now.
Oh, thank you so much, Tony. And if you have questions for Tony, if you have questions for any of the staff that are here, I'm happy to do that, happy to answer them. Tony did a very thorough briefing there. One thing I did, I made myself a quick little note. Tony did mention about making phone calls to passengers, texts, and emails to passengers. Remember that all of these passengers may be on different technology levels than some of you are used to. So you may text somebody who has no idea how to answer a text. So if you are a texter and you don't get a response right away, then you know, be prepared to make that phone call or email. Tim, did you have your hand up?
Hi, yeah, I had a question about how do you go about becoming or getting signed up for being a mission assistant for the first time?
Yep. So, and I see Stephen Lamb has that question too. So, this is a little bit of a difficult question. Tony encouraged people to either go along as a mission assistant or take a mission assistant on your first flight. And I would recommend that as well. Having said that, many pilots who fly on a regular basis either have a flying buddy or whoever they might fly with, that might be their spouse or a child of theirs or whatever. So I will say it's not the easiest to become a mission assistant and just sort of fly along with some other person. But we have Rochelle and David in the office, both of whom work with volunteer services. You can reach out to them. They can keep their eye open for flights where pilots are looking for mission assistants. We have some people like Tony, he does. We have another guy out of Santa Monica that pops in my mind that always takes somebody along. So I'm going to put Rochelle and David's emails in the chat here, and please feel free to reach out to them and they can help you get connected to fly along as a mission assistant. Okay, let's see. Making sure I spelled everything right. Okay, so that answered the mission assistant questions. Blake, the NGF call sign. I'm going to let Tony talk about the specifics of how you put it into your flight plan. Can you do that, Tony? Because
sure.
Not me.
So not every transponder has the capability of changing the call sign. The newer Garmin ones, which I happen to have, you can actually erase your aircraft number and put in the Angel Flight number. I didn't point it out, but if you look at that mission itinerary under my name, you will see a tail number, but you will also see a call sign ID, and that's assigned to you by Angel Flight. And you can type that in to your transponder, and they will see that when you're flying. If you don't do that, you can still call and say, I am Angel Flight, whatever your number is. But if nothing else, identify yourself by Angel Flight and your hull number, so they know that you are an Angel Flight. That is a recognized way of identifying yourself. We normally do not identify ourselves as an Angel Flight when we do not have an Angel Flight passenger on board. So don't just use it for the entire trip on all the legs. If you feel like it's something that would help get you to a situation, I wouldn't tell you not to mention it, but the rule or the recommendation is when you have a passenger aboard, you identify yourself as an Angel Flight. It has another benefit, which I remember Josh, who's the CEO, once said, it also kind of advertises to all the other pilots and people what we're doing. And I'm very proud of that. And it's okay to let them know that you were an Angel Flight trip.
Great.
Hope that
Thanks,
answers.
Tony. Yeah, thank you. Riley, I know we have had other pilots who have mentioned the same thing about the file size on photos. If you can't get them through when you file a mission report, you can email those to missionsteam@angelflightwest.org, which I actually happen to drop into the chat as well, and we can upload them for you. I believe that's on the list of things to get fixed.
If I could add, I forgot to mention the whole photograph thing. So again, part of the permissions is that Angel Flight asks the passengers for permission to have their picture taken. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, I'm more interested in their well-being or the flight, and I forget to take pictures, but try and remember, you can take them in the cockpit, just over your shoulder, but, out on the wing or somewhere where everyone is together is always much appreciated by all parties.
Yeah, Jess, who does all of our social media and all of our communications and is running this today, appreciates the photos. So thanks for that. Polly, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't have the number based in the Southwest, but I will say that in the Southern California, Arizona, and Nevada, we do have a fair number of flights on a daily basis. So we could really use your aircraft if you're unmuted, can you tell me where you're based? Okay, Arizona, yeah, we have a lot of flights in and out of Arizona, especially the Phoenix area, Prescott. The Arizona wing in particular is handled by David, and so I will give him your name, Polly, and he can reach out to you and answer specifically any questions about how we can get your corporate pilot up and flying for us. That would be great. We'd really appreciate it. Keith, no, it is not your N number. It is a number assigned by Angel Flight West. It's a 4-digit number, and you use the letters November Golf Foxtrot, and then the 4-digit number assigned to you by Angel Flight West. Any other questions?
I have a question, but couldn't figure out how to raise my hand otherwise. Let's see, so I'll just ask it. So how far in advance is it typical that flights will come up? I've been following for some time and never tend to see stuff in my region, at least when I look. And is it the kind of things are weeks or months out? It often seems like that, or do they come up, or is it just a whole range of things?
It is a range, but where are you based, Andrew? And I can maybe
So I used to be based in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, and now in the San Juan Islands in Washington. So from here it'd be around here to Seattle or further south as well, but in Northwest Washington, northern part of Washington.
Yeah, there's a lot of flights in and out of Seattle, but we have a good chunk of pilots up there as well, so they get picked up.
Yeah,
pretty
that's
quickly.
Probably what it is. Yeah.
And if you're looking for flights from the San Juans over to Seattle, those get picked up very quickly. So
very fast. Well, that's probably part of it. Okay. Well, I'll just have to work a little harder then. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Keith, it is not required to have an MA. We suggest that you fly along with somebody, or even we can make available a command pilot like Tony to talk to you on the phone or meet you for coffee somewhere and chat with you in advance of flying your first mission to answer some of those questions you might have.
Sherry, if I may just quickly,
Yep.
An MA can be quite helpful if the passengers are having difficulties and they can look after them and you can fly. I've had a couple cases where kids were not that well behaved, and having an MA on was really essential to keep them under control and me being able to go where I'm going.
Yeah, especially for camp missions, that's definitely true. Ethan, you really do need to be able to change your transponder to use that call sign legally.
That's right.
I've heard, as Tony said, sometimes pilots will say I'm an angel flight, but the FAA rule is that you need to be able to change your transponder and not to forget to change it back on that deadhead leg when you don't have the passenger on board.
And I appreciate that correction, but I would also say that you can say angel flight and then your hull number. That's okay.
Mark, there you go. Mark is a relatively new pilot, and thank you for flying, Mark. We're excited to have you on board. Any more questions? Like to do a quick mention for anybody that may be a golfer. Our Angel Flight Golf Tournament is coming up, and we do have some spots available. If you are interested in golfing, it is at beautiful Monarch Beach Golf Club in Dana Point. I dropped our website where all the information is about it. If you're interested, you can fly into the John Wayne Airport. It really is a great day. I'm not just saying that because I work here. I started many, many years ago, and I've been going to the golf tournament at all the variety of courses. And this Monarch Beach is something pretty beautiful, and we have a lot of fun and some good auction items, some fun games out on the course. So if you're at all interested, also, Jess, can you put Mary's email in there for me? If you have any questions about golf and don't just want to go to the website, just put in Mary, who is our Director of Development, and feel free to send her an email and she can answer any questions. Mark, can you clarify, are you talking about the emails that say we need help?
No, I'm talking about someone mentioned like the day before your flight, you get an email that's got the weather and it's got all kinds of information. I have never gotten one of those.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Anne, who handles a lot of our technology, just answered. She's going to look into it. We do have some pilots that, for whatever reason, have difficulty getting them. Not really any rhyme or reason. So Anne will look into that for you.
Okay. And just as a maybe feature request to put on the list, I see text messages immediately. I see emails maybe once a day, maybe not even that. So if you had a system, even if it was just a system that said, hey, there's a new message for you from Angel Flight, by text, and then that would alert me to go look in my email.
We are doing that a little bit more, and we're doing it with our passengers as well. So we email the passenger the same form that we email you so that they know who their pilot is and have that. But many times they don't get them. They sometimes check even less, I think, than pilots do. So we're now texting them and saying, hey, you've got a pilot, check your email. So yeah.
It's
yeah, great. Keith, do we coordinate ATC facility tours? We have not in many years that I can remember. A long, long time ago we did some, but we haven't done any recently. Do we have a date for October yet, Jess?
We are still working on a date, but the topic should be our next safety topic. So we'll make sure to send that out as soon as we confirm it with our safety officers.
Tony mentioned it several times. The Angel Flight coordination staff is there to assist and serve you. So feel free to call us, email us. If you have any questions or want to change something or any of those things that Tony mentioned, that's what we're there for.
And they're good at it.
Thank you. Thank you. We try. Well, we got a lot of good support. We have a pretty tremendous staff, and who's going to look into Mark not getting emails, does a lot of the behind the scenes work on making the technology better and how to make the system better for the coordinators. So we have more time to spend talking to passengers and pilots. So we got a great team. Okay, well, thank you, Jess, for putting this together. As always, appreciate your hard work and all that you do. Thank you, Tony, for your great presentation. That was super thorough, and I think hopefully some of the new folks on learned a lot. Look forward to seeing you all at our safety seminar next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good evening.